I may have an idea of where we're going with this, but let's go. Second Shouty Show.
I've said this before and I'll say it again. I do not think Kevin Stefanski wants Shedeur Sanders to succeed in Cleveland. The reason being is, don't tell me what he said. Don't tell me what he's saying. I'm going off of actions. All right? Let's go off actions. The actions is, if I'm Shedeur or if I'm a Shedeur Sanders fan, I would not want him to take the field because that's going to consistently be the display we're going to see. It doesn't matter if it's Deshaun Watson. It doesn't matter if it's Shedeur Sanders. It doesn't matter if it's Dylan Gabriel. It doesn't matter if it's Dan Orlovsky. It doesn't matter if it's Cam Newton. You need help in Cleveland when you have a quarterback that's still making $46 million on your roster and he's not healthy. That impacts the talent that's around him. They are not a good team. Right. But this is the thing that really irks me the most, is because he doesn't get any reps.
Cam Newton claiming that Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski actively
sabotaging
Shedeur Sanders.
Sort of. Yeah.
I saw this one making the rounds, and I only read the captions previously, so I wanted it. I heard it myself. I just heard it for the first time. I wanted it to be fresh.
Okay. I don't really understand. I'm not quite sure I understand what his point is. I agree with him that Kevin Stefanski has definitely, up until this point, not gone out of his way to smooth Shedeur Sanders' path to a starting spot in Cleveland. But as a fifth-round pick, who's the second of two rookie quarterbacks on that depth chart, you wouldn't expect him to. Like, this is the thing that I think everyone in the pro-Shedeur camp is missing in this entire process is this would be abnormal if they were going out there and doing all these things to ensure Shedeur Sanders does succeed. Like, yeah, he could. Could you make his life easier and try and, prop him up better and set him up for success more than they currently are? Absolutely. Would that be weird given that you've drafted one guy ahead of him and he was third on the depth chart heading into the season? Yeah, absolutely. That would be entirely abnormal. And all these, career backup quarterbacks have been pointing out during the week that it's entirely normal for the backup not to see any starting reps at any point outside of training camp because all the reps need to go to the starter, particularly when the starter is now a third-round rookie who needs all the reps he can get. And that's, again, the difference. I think Dylan Gabriel was getting some starter reps when Joe Flacco was the starter, but that's because Flacco's 58 years old and Dylan Gabriel has never played before. And, of course, you're going to play him at some point this season, so you actually do need to get him some reps as a
chosen
backup.
Ahead of Shedeur, and he's
right.
higher in the depth chart.
It no longer makes sense to do the same thing for Shedeur because, theoretically, the young quarterback who's the starter needs all of those reps in a way that Flacco didn't. So, yeah, I get – it's definitely Stefanski definitely has not been spending this entire season being like, man, I need to figure out how best to smooth this process for Shedeur. But my point in all of this is that's totally normal. Why would he?
Yeah.
Unless he's related to Shedeur, it's not really, why would he do that?
Yeah. I mean, we called out Josina Anderson on Monday morning because she had look at this incredible check down on 3rd and 10, just like a bad football take. It's like you don't know football.
Right.
And you're clearly
it's not even bad. It's just
some level of bias in
right. There. It's just like you've taken a cartoon twisting of facts to try and make it look like Shedeur's good.
And then speaking of cartoons, we get the cartoon cat now.
Yeah.
Saying, and you're saying the Shedeur fans, the one thing they're missing, I think they're missing a few other things. Marbles, brain cells, I don't know.
The clear thing they're missing, though. Even if you take everything they're saying on face value without bias and say, what is if you steel man their argument and say, the point they're making is, Shedeur's never seen these first-team reps. Dylan Gabriel got those first-team reps. What's with that double standard? Well, the double standard is, he's third on the depth chart, and the guy ahead of him is also a rookie. When Dylan Gabriel was the backup, that wasn't the case. The starter was an old man who didn't need the reps, and clearly that old man was not a long-term solution there. So, of course, you're going to, they did what the Patriots did a year ago with Drake May. And they knew that sooner rather than later, Drake May is going to be the starting quarterback of this team. Now, it's a slightly different dynamic in that they knew because he's the third overall pick, and, of course he's going to be the starter. The Browns knew it because Joe Flacco is an old man and not very good for the majority of the last few years of his career. So, of course, eventually Dylan Gabriel is going to be playing games this season. So they did that. That's smart, shrewd, forward-thinking. This is how you get a young quarterback ready. It's not the same thing when you have when the second guy is a young quarterback, but the first guy is still a young quarterback. He still needs the reps.
If we could unpack the lunacy for a minute, it's all a big societal problem, Sam. I mean, it's like the kernel. There's always like a kernel of truth of everything that goes sideways and gets explodes into nonsense. The kernel of truth there, like if Josina or Cam Newton is trying to make a point. If the point is to be, don't judge Shedeur Sanders after one game, that's the kernel of truth.
Absolutely.
That is
and
true.
Totally fair.
Right? It was absolutely fair. So, like, if the over-the-top pushback is, hey, I know he went 4 for 16 and it looked ugly and he had the one sick check down, but, like, everything was rough over. He did throw a really nice dig route, which I did see somebody put out, like, Dylan Gabriel hasn't made this throw this way, which is fair.
And the play broken up in the end zone that could have been a touchdown.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't the best throwing pass in the world, but he put the ball in the hands of his receiver late in the game, which could have been a tying touchdown. Like, that, again, is something Gabriel hasn't done a lot of.
The kernel of truth is that.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to sit here and tell it like it is. I like to think, right? It was an ugly first debut with, some nice plays in there, but certainly don't judge him off of that. Don't judge him off his first start, right? I mean, even Jackson Dart's first start, we're like, man, he couldn't throw the ball, and it got better and better as the weeks went on. Like, we're smarter than this to judge a quarterback by his first start.
All right, that's enough of that, Steve. It's come to my attention that only 40% of people watching this are actually subscribed. So hit the subscribe button. It helps the channel a ton, and we appreciate it hugely. Now back to Steve.
If that was the point and it ended there, fair game. When it turns into, so then you take that little kernel and it's like, man, Stefanski's just like straight up sabotage.
He's got it in for him. Yeah.
Stefanski, who might already be teetering on this hot seat here, is just like, let's just blow it all up. I don't care about my job. I hope we got to get back at Dion. We got to get back at Dion.
I watched a video. Yeah. Should I bring up his name? Because this is a bit harsh. I saw Rich Eisen. I watched 10 minutes of Rich Eisen talking about it. Rich Eisen openly admits that he's biased in favor of Shedeur Sanders because obviously he worked with Deion Sanders for years. He's effectively a friend of the family, right? And he's out here. Part of the evidence he was using to construct a vaguely similar case was when they drafted Shedeur Sanders, they showed the video and they're all looking miserable. Like they didn't want him. They never wanted him, right? It's all, and you're like that. The video was already kind of debunked. They've seen the video. They show the same thing when they drafted Quinshon Judkins. They're not celebrating. Like they just don't react the way the Cowboys react in the draft.
People put out debunked stuff and just keep using it as fodder. Okay.
Well, I'm saying, this is the problem with the misinformation world we're in, is that you like to think that, oh, it's okay. You put out misinformation and you put out information and eventually the truth will rise. But it doesn't.
No.
What happens is the misinformation, like that line of a lie is halfway around the world before the truth has had a chance to put his shoes on or whatever. Like that's what happens. The lie circulates and months later, people like Rich Eisen are still, like it's still in his head as just embedded truth. This is what happened. You're like, but it isn't. And this is the problem. The one thing that Newton said that I think is absolutely true, and we've been saying for years, is the Deshaun Watson deal. As long as he is still on your roster, taking up the giant amount of space he's taken up cap-wise, you have problems. And that's why their quarterback depth chart right now is 2 low-round rookies, because that's the only way. That's the cheapest way you can get out of this.
Like that is also true. But then it goes back to, remember all these pre-draft reports, or at least discussions, whether they were true or not, that Shedeur was turning down interviews here and there, and like I don't know if there's any truth to any of that. But that was what was so ridiculous, because it's not like he was this otherworldly prospect who could, pick his spot. It's like, so you landed in Cleveland. All right, dude, deal with it.
Yeah.
Just that's where you are. Like, and I'm talking to Cam Newton. I'm talking to, like, you landed in this situation where, yes, they've got all of this dead cap and they've got a horrible situation.
And again, where there's a slight kernel of truth that gets, inflated to absurd degrees is, oh, they never wanted him. True. They probably didn't want him. The way you know that is because they passed on him in the draft, not just in the first round, but then all the way down the draft until they got to the 5th round, including drafting Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd. So it's not like they were out of the quarterback market. They quite clearly did not want Shedeur Sanders. And then at some point in the draft determined that the gamble, the cost of drafting him anyway, is worth it, right? Like, we don't really think this guy is a starting quarterback in the NFL, but we're in the 5th round. What if we're wrong? What the hell? Let's roll the dice, right? So that's probably a very accurate interpretation. They did not want Shedeur Sanders. They weren't in love with him as a prospect. They did not think that he had a starting quarterback potential, which is why Dylan Gabriel was drafted ahead of him, which is why Dylan Gabriel has been ahead of him on the depth chart the whole way, which is why Dylan Gabriel is getting all the starting reps right now, which is why Shedeur Sanders comes into the game and doesn't look good right away. That part is true. They do not think that he has a huge amount of chance of turning into a starting quarterback in the NFL, and they might be right about that. The thing is, the only way Sanders can change their mind is in a difficult situation. Like, that's, again, it's all normal. That's the difference. Like,
that's what
the kernel of truth is, yeah, they probably don't think he can start in the NFL. What you're missing in this is an outrage, is that's true for every quarterback that's 3rd on the depth chart heading into the NFL.
Just be consistent with it. They weren't like when Gardner Minshew came in, when Spencer Rattler came in, when Tom Brady came in, we weren't calculating how many first-team reps did they have.
Nobody's rolling into the NFL with a QB 3 on the depth chart who was drafted in the 5th round that's getting like set up for success.
Yeah,
find me that guy and then you have a point.
That's what Rich was kind of hinting at. It's like, man, they just don't have this development plan for Shedeur Sanders.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
No.
Because he's a 5th round quarterback, 3rd in the depth chart. 4th at the time. I mean, remember, Kenny Pickett was ahead of him.
Oh, by the way, we said this at the beginning of the year. I know it's really tough for people to think 2 years out. And we just focus on, well, this year, Browns quarterbacks suck. I mean, we just said a year ago, like, they spent a 3 and a 5 on 2 quarterbacks. And they're probably not going to be good. Of course they're going to draft a quarterback in the 1st round. They have 2 picks next year.
Yeah.
And so they're probably drafting Fernando Mendoza or Ty Simpson or whoever's there. And then it's going to be trade watch. Right. Like, who's going to trade for Shedeur and just hand him the keys to the franchise?
Mohal in the chat is pointing out that we were both on Shedeur Sanders as a 1st-round draft pick. And it's important to point out the difference between evaluating the state of the world as the Browns have laid it out, i.e. the way the draft unfolded, and evaluating the counterfactual or the hypothetical world where what would have happened had we been in charge of the Browns and drafted Shedeur in the 1st round. Like, these are 2 different worlds, one of which is make-believe, right?
I also may have reconsidered after that we were just doing that off tape and not really knowing
of course,
what
yeah,
else
like,
about the kid.
Even independent of the fact that we didn't get a chance, like, there's a bunch of stuff
I know where
that's
you're gonna
relevant.
Go. I'll finish your thought.
Yeah, that there's a bunch of stuff that's relevant to the evaluation process that we were not privy to. Neither of us sat down and interviewed Shedeur Sanders pre-draft. That might have changed your opinion on him as a 1st-round draft pick. Even if you assume for a moment that all checked out and you bought into that as, he's just getting screwed by everybody else and I like the moxie, and you would have drafted him in the 1st round. That obviously changes everything. Like, at that point, he is your heir apparent. At that point,
you have a development plan, and you do.
At that point, he is number 2 on the depth chart. He's getting the snaps that Dylan Gabriel was getting while Joe Flacco held the clipboard for a month or so. And then he's the starting quarterback at week 4. And of course you set him up for success at that point. It's a whole different world. But that's not the world we were presented with. Once you got clear of the draft, it became clear that whatever we thought about him as a prospect, which again may be missing significant information, whatever we thought about him at that point, the NFL writ large has determined that this kid is not a starting quarterback. If they thought that, somebody would have drafted him on day 1 or 2. They didn't. The entire league passed on him several times over. The league determined this guy was a backup quarterback at best, and therefore the whole picture changes. Like, once you're a backup, how the league behaves towards you is totally different. And that's the thing. Again, this is the hurdle that everybody pro Shedeur doesn't get past, right? I thought he was a 1st-round draft pick. I thought and think he's a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. Therefore, he should be treated this way. Like, yeah, but the league doesn't think that, so it's irrelevant.
Right.
It doesn't matter what you think anymore.
And more specifically, the Browns.
Yeah.
The Browns, like when you go into,
But
you don't
again,
know.
I think it's important to say the league, because this is not a Brown-specific behavioral issue. This is not they are treating Shedeur like he's dirt on the sole of their shoe. The entire league would treat this kid exactly the same, which is you're a day 3 pick, you're the 3rd quarterback on the depth chart, 2nd now. You get no chance. Like, this is your chance, which is fresh off the bench without ever throwing to Jerry Jeudy.
Right.
Unlucky. It's not fair, but it's the same chance anybody else gets.
And so, yeah, that's the main point. It doesn't matter who thought he was going to go in the first round.
Right.
He didn't.
Exactly.
And especially for the Browns.
And that changes the world.
The Browns also drafted another quarterback ahead of him.
Yes.
So clearly, like, I'm not in their draft room. I'm just going to make an assumption that the Browns overall as an organization liked Dylan Gabriel more than Shedeur Sanders. I don't know how I could find that out, but
like, Washington didn't set Kirk Cousins up for success, other than the fact that they murdered their starting quarterback by getting him hurt multiple times over. Like, they weren't out here being like, what's the pathway to make sure Kirk Cousins jumps over RG3 on the depth chart, right? There was no meeting during which that was said. They were like, yeah, we like Kirk Cousins. Let's grab him, later on the draft, even though we just drafted RG3. But, like, the end, they didn't then spend the next 6 months strategizing how best to maximize Kirk Cousins. They just had him sitting his ass on the depth chart, running the scout team. And then when RG3 went down, it's like, in you go, Kirk. And he actually played well, because apparently Kirk Cousins is a starting caliber NFL quarterback, right? This world that they're inventing in their head of what is this pathway for a 5th-round rookie, it doesn't exist.
where was Brock Purdy's first team reps? Right. How many did he have? We have to calculate them all going forward here.
What was the pathway to success for Brock Purdy?
A lot of former backup quarterbacks, I think Luke McCown was out there. And all these quarterbacks are like, hello, journeyman quarterback here. I don't know what you people, I don't know where this talking point's even coming from about first team reps. That doesn't exist.
Correct.
For a non-first round quarterback. And even Drake May as the backup taking first round reps. We talked about that as
that was criticized by some people.
Yeah, that was. It was. It's like, you're not doing Jacoby Brissett a solid.
Right.
It's like, no offense to Jacoby Brissett,
but
who now has the completion record for a game. No offense to Jacoby Brissett, but the Patriots weren't like trying to get him ready to be the Patriots quarterback of the future. It doesn't matter if they did well by Jacoby Brissett, who's not even in the building anymore.
And the Luke McCown post, I think, was interesting. You can go read it on Twitter if you're so inclined. Because, you could make the argument that, well, maybe they should have this pathway for every quarterback, right? Because the payoff, the benefit, the value of hitting on a Brock Purdy, right? Low-round quarterback nobody thought was any good, but actually turns out is huge. So why would you not have some kind of development?
Argument, I would say.
Yeah, it is. But the Luke McCown post, I think, illustrates the issue with that, which is you just do not have the reps to go around, right? Like he's saying you've got 4 or 5 sort of specific team things that you do in a given practice, and each one of those has 7, 8 reps. You can't give 3 of those to the backup. Like every one of those reps is valuable for the starting quarterback. Again, particularly if your starting quarterback is young, inexperienced, and needs all the reps he can get. So it's like you just don't have. There just isn't this wealth of like endless reps to go around for these young quarterbacks that you want to get. And again, if you're giving those reps to the QB3, what are you doing to QB2? Does he just get screwed, or do you have to set him up for success as well? Like at that point, the starter is getting 3 reps, like of each period of practice. Like what does that do to anybody?
I'm already shocked at how few reps they get, and I can't believe that they can execute
exactly
the entire playbook.
So it's like,
the starters I'm talking about.
The argument is fair that if you really wanted to maximize the chance that your 5th-round rookie actually turned out to be a useful quarterback and you got incredible value out of that, that's totally reasonable. But now you need to change practice. Like now you need to go back to the CBA and say, you know what, instead of whatever this is, 30, 40 reps in a practice, I need 120 minimum.
I mean, then you get into a whole different discussion. The NFL Players Association has been fighting so much for player safety,
right?
Which has come through in fewer practice reps, fewer OTAs. Like everything is less football in the off season, which is fine.
Yeah.
But then, the effect of that is offensive line development, quarterback development, right? So that's the fallout for the things that they've been fighting for the most.
Correct.
Which is, fewer reps essentially.
Yeah. So this is the NFL landscape right now. If you want to create a pathway for people like Shedeur Sanders, it likely involves something else. It involves the UFL. It involves sending them to Italy or whatever. Like it's something different. It's
Send them to Italy.
Well, I pick Italy out as one of those semi-pro leagues, right? A league that's actually, it's not the NFL, but you need a venue for these kids to actually play football that isn't the NFL and/or practice reps that they're not going to get any of, right? And at the moment, again, that doesn't exist. So that's the issue. Like, the pathway for these fifth-round rookies to be good NFL starters does not exist currently. And that's not the Browns' fault. That's not Kevin Stefanski's fault. He's simply operating within the current parameters entirely normally. And everyone who's pro Shedeur is losing their mind at it because they're like, well, that doesn't help my kid. No, it doesn't. But that's not Stefanski's fault.
I just can't believe some of the takes that have come out since the draft on Shedeur. The people bringing up, well, they called the better plays for Dylan Gabriel in the preseason.
But that falls into the category of so crazy.
This got to be the extreme.
Yeah.
It's so crazy, but it's also an NFL media member. And now this guy, former NFL MVP, with the dude's been in NFL buildings, and he literally thinks that the coach is sabotaging the fifth-round pick. For what purpose?
Does he think that, or does he just think that'll get some traction when he talks?
I don't know.
But this is that's the people that are like, oh, they're not calling the good plays for Shedeur. I put that into the category of so crazy it's not worth engaging with. But I think
that's what I said Monday morning about the stuff that we brought up.
Yeah, but I think with each one of these things, again, we've kind of zeroed in on the kernel of truth that is worth discussing.
Yeah.
Like, it is fair to say that this is not a situation that sets Shedeur Sanders up for success. It is also fair to say, the Browns probably never wanted Shedeur Sanders as their starting quarterback.
And that's the expectation.
Right. Yes, that's the problem. That's the other shoe that they never let drop during these conversations is both of those things are true. However, they're also quite normal. Like, that's the thing you're missing here in this whole dynamic. Like, and again, Rich Eisen's part of it is explained by the fact that he is a legitimate family friend. He is genuinely biased and admits so, and therefore just isn't seeing that part of it. Like, from his perspective, it's like, this is deeply unfair to somebody that I have, genuine affection for, and no. And you're like, yeah, it is. I get it. This screws Shedeur Sanders, right? Had Shedeur Sanders been a first-round draft pick, the whole world would be treating him very differently to right now. And that is unfortunate from his perspective. Again, if you take the opinion that wasn't his fault, and maybe it was. But that's just the reality of the NFL. Like, it's not unique to him. He's not being individually screwed by this. This is just what happens to every quarterback that doesn't go in the first 3 rounds.
Or every player in sports.
Well,
that's as a former undrafted free agent.
3 times over.
I can't believe they drafted Madison Bumgarner while I was.
I can't believe they treated him differently to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't believe they let him get into a fight his first day of instructs and didn't send him home. First round pick.
That being said, with all of this stuff, right, despite all of this, despite being actively sabotaged by his head coach, despite his entire franchise not wanting him there.
Overcoming the odds.
Right, despite everybody drafted ahead of him, despite all of these things, and them never calling the good plays, he now has an opportunity to go out there and win a starting job by starting in a football game, or at least win it for a bit.
It's part of our news update.
But you know what I mean? Like,
we'll spend another 20 minutes on it.
Even if you're of the opinion that Shedeur has been screwed by the system, he's about to get, he either has or he's about to be named the starter for this upcoming week. The dude is going to get an opportunity, however limited, to go out there and show that he belongs. And that, what more do you need? Most fifth-round quarterbacks are never getting that opportunity.
No, that's true.
Like, this is however much the system is screwing Shedeur right now, the dude is still out there with a chance to win a starting job or win something longer in terms of a look by going out there and balling against not a good team.
If he does finish strong and the Browns still decide to, we'll talk about it in a few minutes here. Shedeur Sanders getting the start because Dylan Gabriel still in concussion syndrome.
Look, as we discussed, despite everything, he's getting an opportunity to start a game, and it's against Las Vegas. Like, this is the opportunity to show that you belong in the NFL. If he plays the way he played last week, that's it. He's done. If he doesn't, if he actually goes out there and absent a good defense going up against him, he has a better behavior in the pocket. He actually pushes the ball down the field and connects on some of these passes, and the Browns' offense suddenly catches fire. Well, then you have an interesting discussion. Now you're like, all right, is the flaw that Shedeur Sanders deals with a smaller flaw than the one, and does his positive outweigh his flaw more than Dylan Gabriel's positives outweigh his negatives? Right? That we talked about him early in the week. They're almost polar opposite quarterbacks the way they behave right now. But if Shedeur goes out in this game and the offense is the best it's looked this season, even if it's against the Raiders, right? Like it's a little bit of an asterisk. But if it looks legit, well then despite everything, you've bought yourself a chance. And that's all he can do.
I'm not ready. I mean, no matter which way it goes, I'm not ready for the discourse. I'm not ready for it. Because I think what's interesting here is if he has a good game, and then they say, all right, we want to build on that, even though they already said Gabriel will be the starter. But so if he has if it's just a one-game sample,
yeah,
and it goes well,
yeah,
then we might have an offseason of trade talks and the Jets, all the QB needy teams. Then it's like Shedeur Sanders against this is what's going to happen, Sam. Shedeur goes 20 of 26 for 250, 2 touchdowns, still gets sacked a few times, but he tears apart this Raiders defense this week. And the offense looks different. That would be something, by the way, because the offense does not look good under Joe Flacco and Dylan Gabriel. If you just get this aesthetically pleasing offense, it just looks like it's got some life.
Yeah.
There's probably something there. But if that happens and then they go back to Dylan Gabriel, then all of a sudden it's like, all right, we got to get Shedeur out of town. Get him out of here. They're holding him back. But like literally, we should have legit discussions. Like, should someone else bring him in and give him a shot? Like, should the Jets, who have all these picks,
look,
draft Mendoza and trade for Shedeur Sanders and
again,
go compete?
It's too small of a sample size against too bad an opponent to take anything significant about it. So I don't want to spend any kind of significant time talking about what the chaos is going to come from this. Like, the point is he finally gets an opportunity to start a game, which is what everyone's been clamoring for. Now let's sit back and watch how it goes. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video.
Check the Mic is live Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss a video.
You heard the man. Subscribe.